My name is Paul. It is good to be. Erev Tov, good evening. It is good to have me, no? Well, it is good to be had. I must first certainly say that I am so grateful for the wonderful introduction I got from the two old guys. How do you say, Abbott and Costello? I'm grateful to be among you once again, my brother, and I must say that I was brought here from airport in great big black limousine. You know, I am the one who said that we should be content in whatever state we find ourselves in. Right now I am content to ride in big black limousine. I came here in great plane from a city called Los Angeles. Not without problems, mind you, for no sooner than I got on plane and found myself a nice window seat. Young man comes to me and he says, you know, you're sitting in my seat. No, it appears that I am sitting in my seat. He said, no, it is mine. I said, no, it is mine. There's a motor there right already. He said, go ahead, you fly the plane. As I travel across your great country, many times I find myself very well taken care of by many wonderful people. The hospitality I am most grateful for, and I found myself served wonderful food, but always seems to be leftovers. I go to the north and they serve me leftovers. I go to the west and they serve me leftovers. I come to the south, they serve me leftovers. I was wondering what happened to the original meal. You know, I have also found much joy in many of you. Many of you have given me much joy. Some of you by coming and others by going, but I am so grateful to be here among you, my brethren. For I have found many of you to be very zealous for the Torah. And you have well defended His holy commandments, I can see. You know, never forget that one mitzvah can change the world. Two mitzvot, however, will only make you tired. Although I am very proud of you for standing up for the Torah, I have found that many of my own brethren in your country I found to be very disappointed in. For not only do they have no room for Messiah in their lives, but they have totally disregarded the Creator. But at least I have found that many of them still struggle to keep the commandments of the God they don't believe in. I have traveled a very long way to be with you. I have visited your feast before, no? Yes, I remember well. I shared some of my life with you with my Elishua. Yes, I was married once, you know. You were surprised? No. I I am Pharisee, I am Jew, I'm rabbi. All rabbis are married, don't you know? All the good ones, anyway. And I also remember I shared with you about my little son Samuel, who, as you well know, was not long for this world. Here a very short time, but for a little while, for just a brief moment, I, Rav Shaul, I have a son. I think I would have been a good papa, no. But if I only had the chance, I guess the master had other things planned for me. I was born in a city called Tarsus. Nice Jewish home. I memorized the Torah from my mother and my father. I learned what the Torah meant from the greatest of the rabbis. Of course, now I know I was better off with my mother and my father. My father, he was most wonderful man. He was a good man, and he was brilliant man too. He taught me all the things that I need to know, and some of the things he used to say. Oh, he's had such wonderful sayings. One saying I will never forget. The rest of my life, I still remember him saying to me, Shaul, get out of the bathroom and let someone else in there once in a while. My father, he taught me all about the birds and the bees, you know. Of course, he taught me about the birds and the bees because, you know, he knew nothing about women. And I learned much from Rabbi Gamaliel. Rabbi Gamaliel, you know, his name means to be weaned by God. He taught me all the needful subjects of our religion, and I remember one of the last things that he taught me was he said, Shaul, always remember that in real life there is no such thing as algebra. I'll never forget that. My mistake sometimes was letting my schooling interfere with my education, of course. From a very young man, I learned how to pit one religion against another. We were very good at that, don't you know? I learned how to bury the Torah and present my laws against your laws. I was very successful at perpetuating my own religion, don't you know? For you see, my relationship with the Father was solely dependent upon my own self-perceived ability to keep up with him. Sometimes even get a little ahead of him. The more I learned, the more attention I received, and I became a very well-known Pharisee and most respected one at that. You know, not all Pharisees are corrupt, you know. For every 7 of us that were corrupt, there was always one who paid no attention to our teachers, therefore leaving God something to work with.
Paul?
You need to go to restroom?
No, I have a question for you.
What is this, a press conference?
No, this may be my only chance to ask you.
It's not about the gestation period of farm animals, is it? Because I don't know much about that.
Well, Rav Shaul, our Bible study group was wondering, when do you think life actually begins?
When does life begin? When the children are gone and married.
That's not what I meant.
Well, that's what you think.
Well, some say that you do not encourage marriage. Is that true?
No, that is not true. I think marriage is a wonderful institution. Of course, who wants to be in an institution? Right, what?
Well, is it true? Is it true that in the land of Israel, a man does not really know his wife until they're married?
Yes, that is true. But that is true everywhere you go.
Well then...
Other question?
Can you tell us this? Do you teach that we're no longer servants of the law?
No. No, I teach that we are no longer servants to sin. The rest is commentary. What? More questions?
Yeah. We've been hearing lately from the scientific community that many people are born homosexual. But our pastor tells us that we were born heterosexual. Which is true?
Man is not born homosexual. Man is not born heterosexual. Mankind born male and female. God gives Torah for male and Torah for female. You choose to obey or not to obey. It's pretty simple.
Shaul.
No questions.
Well,
What?
Do you teach a pre-trib rapture?
What?
You know, the rapture of the church before the tribulation.
Rapture of the church before the tribulation. I don't know. It all sounds Greek to me. You know, you people are always still thinking like Greeks, always wanting to abandon the world rather than turning it upside down.
One more question?
Oh, yeah, one more question.
One more question, Rav Shaul. Do you believe in speaking in tongues?
Yes, one must have a tongue to speak.
Well, let me put it another way.
Please do.
Do you believe that speaking in tongues is for today?
Today? Today? No, not today, only on Tuesdays.
No. I mean, is it for the times we live in?
What's so different about the times you live in? The conditions of humans, they always change, but the human condition is the same. There's only one God, I told you that from the beginning. Only one body, only one seed, only one people of God from beginning. What do you think?
Forgive me, Rav Shaul. I know you're a busy man. I'm sorry.
Nah. Forget it. I'll forget it, you forget it, we'll both forget it, but I'll remember it and don't you forget it. Has he gone away now? Sit down before you fall down. I was well-informed Pharisee. I was made aware of this Yeshua and his ministry. I saw him in the streets of the cities preaching and teaching in the small villages, and we heard the reports of his ability to heal and to raise the dead. But more than that, we heard and we saw the joy and peace that seemed to follow him wherever he went. For you see, as ministers of the cloth, that irritated us to no end. You see, depression and chaos is what keeps us in business, don't you know? The more you learn to follow the Torah, the less you need of us. So I saw this Yeshua. I saw him do nothing but good. I listened to him teach and expound the Torah, and I watched as he lived it. I heard him tell his followers to take up their tree and follow him. I did not understand his words much at the time, but later on Abba would take me into the wilderness, and he would make me understand what he was saying. One day during our feast, I followed the noisy crowd to the streets, and I watched as the crowd, all of us, we chose to release and follow a lawless one, rather than the one who obeyed God. We watched as all of us chose to put to death the one who obeyed Torah and to follow the one who broke the Torah. Let Barabbas go, we screamed. Release him! Release the lawless one, we cried. He will set us free. This so-called Messiah, he is a strange thing to us. He will put burdens on us and free us. Free the lawless one, we cried. I was there. I saw what happened. I witnessed later on, that morning, I saw him hang on the execution tree. I watched him take his last breath. I watched them beat him. I was there when they struck him. He was almost unrecognizable. In hindsight, I suppose I can weep now, but at the time, it didn't matter because I knew that I was right. I could handle it because I knew I was right. You know, in religion, mind you, love and compassion and mercy are never as important as being right, don't you know? As I walked away, I thought to myself, well, he is gone now. All his words and his commandments are gone with him. But 3 days later, we heard the rumors. This Yeshua is not dead. This Messiah, this Word of God, he is alive and more alive than he ever was. For the Torah of life is risen. Only very quickly to have many of your theologians put him to death once again. And I persecuted this way of death, don't you remember? I let my religion take precedence over what I witnessed right in front of my eyes. Sometime later, my memory sometimes is not so good, but I was on my way to Damascus, and I was screaming and crying out, cursing and swearing these followers of Yeshua. Right in the middle of my cursing and swearing as I'm walking down the road, I looked up and there he was. There he was right in front of me. And immediately I began to shake and tremble before him because I knew that I saw him die on the tree. And I knew this has to be the Messiah. And he turned to me, he said, Shaul, why do you persecute me so? And immediately, I felt such shame come over me. And I fell down to my knees. And I cried out, I'm not worthy of this. I'm full of shame. And I'm not worthy. And I began to weep. And I looked up and I saw him. He was weeping with me. And we wept together on the road. I was so happy what he had done in my life. I had not many words to say. After returning home, the Lord took me into a land surrounding my place of birth. And in His Word, He began to show me that how complicated we had made His Word. As I traveled past the streams and the valleys and the fields, and He showed me His Word growing right in front of my eyes. He said, Shaul, look around you. What do you see? I spent 3 years with Him in my land, looking at all these things that He had brought forth from the very beginning. He said, Shaul, what do you see? He says, not what I gave my people from the very beginning, the flowers and the trees and the fruit. And I said, Shaul, you and your own brethren, you've been trying to produce my fruit without my seed. He said, I am the seed of the woman, and the Torah is my fruit. Teach this to the people. First you plant the seed, and then you look for the fruit. He said, how you say, hello? I was in the wilderness, and it was there that I learned that the faith of my fathers was not exactly the faith of my brethren. For I told you, let this mind be in you that was in the Messiah Yeshua. Mind of Messiah was not mine of Episcopalian priest. He did not go to your great seminaries. Of course, I have found that many of your seminaries are much like ours in my day, where the notes of the professor pass down to the notes of the student without passing to the minds of either one. Not too long ago, I was asked to speak at a place called St. Peter's Cathedral. St. Peter's. If you only knew what I knew. The religious leaders that came to me and they said, Paul, can you speak to our people and straighten out those heretics and legalists who are teaching our people that they're supposed to obey the commandments of Moses? I said, first, I must ask you a question. Do you want me to teach from my letters, or do you want me to teach from your letters? How about my epistles according to me? I have heard the rumors about me. These rumors are still being told as I speak. And I must say the news of the death of Torah has been exaggerated. Many of you have not learned much at all this time, have you? The other day I heard rumor that I was tall, dark, and handsome. That rumor I did not mind so much. I also heard rumor that it was I who started teaching that Messiah was God in the flesh. Although I would be very honored to have that kind of teaching attributed to me, I'm afraid that the Messiah started that rumor. Remember, I did not teach what was new. I only taught what was true. When I taught you that in Messiah there is neither Jew nor Gentile, that is not new, that is simply true. Messiah is from the beginning. He is one good seed. He is the Word of God from the very beginning. There's only two seeds from the beginning, my friends, and you see, we are constantly fighting and dividing over ourselves. We should be about the business of discerning the difference between the good seed and the bad seed and not dividing up the good seed. Hello? I told you that the children of the flesh, these are not the children of God. But the children of the promise, they are counted as the seed. For you see, God's firstborn is the first one He puts His seed into, not the first one you put your seed into. These are the children of God. I am a most misunderstood man. I know that. Trust me, I see that wherever I go. I am always being accused of teaching against the Torah. I understand that my writings are now called the New Testament. You keep this up and pretty soon the Torah is going to be called the Old Testament. I have noticed that in your great debates, my words are always used like, how you say, punching sack. My words are always quoted as proof of one teaching, and same words are used as proof of opposite teaching. That's because many of your theologians are always starting in the middle. God started in the beginning. He laid down foundation before building the house. Sounds like a pretty good plan to me. According to the prophets, God has revealed the end from the beginning. This has always been true, and I have struggled to teach you these things. I don't know what some of you are doing. One day, my companions and I went to Jerusalem. And the brethren were more than excited to see us, trust me. It was during the feast day, so we were greeted with much celebration, and we were all enjoying our life in Messiah. Much like we are doing here, I see. The next day, I came to Yaakov and the brethren to testify of all the wonderful things that were going on in Asia. Once again, we celebrated with the Lord with much enthusiasm. For you see, since I have met the Messiah on the way to Damascus, my life with the brethren has never been the same. Of course, I am not getting much sleep. Some of the brothers said to me, Shaul, as you can see, there are tens of thousands of believers among our brethren in the flesh who are all zealous for the Torah. I said, finally, you have the donkey before the cart. However, they said there are rumors among those of our flesh that you are teaching the new believers to forsake the Torah of our fathers. What should we do about this? So several of us took a vow and we went to the temple. We decided that perhaps if those who are spreading these rumors could actually witness my love of the Torah, then perhaps they would stop these rumors. How you say, but no. For those whose eyes have been opened, little evidence is necessary, but those who are still blind, no evidence will do. We advise the Gentiles who not believe that they should not join us in this vow, and they should learn the Torah in the synagogues. For you see, the new believers were still learning to tie their sandals. You see, a vow is not to be taken lightly. It was then that my friend and I went to Lystra, and it was there that they stoned me. And as I lay there on the ground, I began to think about my sunset. Can't tell you, my Lord, how I miss him so much. If I could only see his face, his little hand to touch. As day by day goes by, my memory starts to dim. I know I cannot come to him. Soon I'll go to him. For to live is Messiah, but to die, that is gain. Life seems to have no purpose. Isn't here but shame. So Lord, take me now, 'cause I want to be with you. Want to see my wife again. Little Samuel too. So one day I preached in Lystra, to die, that is gain. Life seems to have no purpose. There's nothing here but pain. So Lord, take me now, 'cause I want to be with you. Want to see my wife again. That was Samuel too. So the Lord took me to heaven and told me not to tell. Showed me paradise for hours and about 10 minutes of hell. He opened up the ark for me, gave me manna, just one little taste. He turned it into the moments I would not waste. He said, Shaul, you've got to go back now, for we have many things for you to do. He said, but before you go, there's someone I want you to meet. And I looked out over his shoulder, and I saw a young man walking toward me. And immediately my arms went up and my eyes filled with tears. I cried, Samuel! He cried, Papa! Oh, he's here to you. I was so happy to see you. And so I threw my arms around him and I hugged him oh so tight. Well, because I knew that what the Lord had said, it was true and real and right. And now I can go home again for all eternity. Samuel said, Papa, you've got to go back. He said, for although I did not get to see the light of the world, there are millions of people who will see the true light of the world because of your words. So Papa, go and preach. And that song you were singing it all wrong. So go like this: die is gain, but to live, that is Messiah. So bring them out of darkness to your marvelous lights. Now, Papa, go and preach till it's time for you to go. For to know is what you've hoped for, but now hope is what you know. Bye, Samuel. I'm sorry. Months later, I once again returned to Jerusalem. And once again, I was accused of teaching against the Torah. And once again, I was brought before the council. And once again, I boldly proclaimed that I have been faithful to the word of God until this day. Ananias commanded them to strike me in the face. But this is how you say, where I draw the mark. I said, God will strike you instead, you coffin of dead bones. You sit as one that takes it upon yourself to judge me against the Torah, and then command me to be stricken contrary to the Torah. I was immediately informed that this man was the high priest. You are the high priest? For it says in our Torah that we are not to speak evil of the high priest, but who died and made you boss. And I was brought before Felix, the governor. Once again, I was accused of teaching against the Torah. Once again, false accusers were brought before me, and none could prove any of the things that I was accused of saying and doing. These men had no problem showing that I had spoken against their customs, but had no evidence that I taught against any of the things written in the Torah and the prophets. Now I see that your modern religions are teaching the same thing. A lie is an abomination unto the Lord, but it can be a very present help to those whose backs are against the wall. I don't know. I've always found that those who cannot dance will always say that the band is no good. Once again, I stand against their customs and traditions and proclaim the Torah of our Messiah. And I will say that until the day I die. For the Torah blesses you and keeps you, and it will prosper your land, but they will curse you if you do not obey it. It is tree of life to those who take a hold of it. I understand that your land, as good as it is in many ways, leads the world in pornography. I understand that your land is number one in the world in illegal drug use and legal drug use, and you're number one in the world in murder. You lead the world in suicide and disease. You're number one in the world in health costs and violent crimes. And you're number one in the world in churches and seminaries and purpose-driven congregations. What is wrong with this photo? Because you choose to eat from tree of knowledge of good and evil rather than the tree of life. Many of you who are striving to do good are simply eating from good side of tree of good of knowledge of good and evil. Of course, as the Pharisees and the Sadducees began to debate, I began to clearly perceive that as I was brought before these courts, it wasn't because I was teaching against God's ways, but it was because I was teaching against their ways. And so I angered them very much, and many of them took a vow to kill me, to silence my words. The Messiah, he too kept the Torah he wrote, and he said to take up your cross and follow me. Look what happened to him. So follow me as I follow the Messiah. And keep the traditions as I have handed them down to you. For I received them from Messiah, or Messiah received them from the Father, and you received them from me. It all works out pretty good. I don't know. The word of the Lord tells us to take his words from beginning and teach it to our fathers. He told the fathers to teach these things to the children forever. What part of forever do we just not get? Prophet Isaiah told us over and over and over that the end is revealed from the very beginning. So if your adversary, keep them away from the beginning. And you're doing a pretty good job of that. But remember, we have power over the adversary. But do not take him for granted. That is why we call him Beelzebub. I know in your language you call him Beelzebub. In our language we call him Beelzebub. It's because adversary is like mosquito, flies in your room at 3 in the morning, you cannot cast him out. Your modern theologians have done a wonderful job of perpetuating the rumors and keeping their followers away from the beginning. I have advice for many of your theologians. A rumor is like a tumor. If you don't stop it early enough, it grows into an object that looks just like their brain. I have listened to many of your religious theologians, and I have always admonished them that a closed mouth gathers no feet. They seem to want to serve God, but only as advisors. The message is supposed to change us. We're not supposed to change the message. And as I travel, I see that many of you are rightfully concerned about prophecy as well. I talked much about prophecy, if I remember. I wrote much about the subject. But keep in mind that a false balance is an abomination unto the Lord, and so be balanced in your life. Some are so concerned about the world of tomorrow, which is sometimes not so certain, that you forget about the condition of the world today, which is pretty clear. You're always divided, my friends. I'm telling you, many of you have your priorities wrong. Before he ever warned you of where you've been or where you're going, he's always going to warn you of your condition now. And as I travel, I see that many of your people don't have right priorities. They cannot decide what is weightier matter. Reminds me of a man who fell into a pit. Man is in pit, and along comes a sympathetic person and says, you know, I really feel really bad that you're in the pit. Then along comes an objective person and says, my friend, that is a pit. Christian Scientist comes along and says, you know, you only think you're in a pit. Apologist comes along and says, hey, did you test that pit first? Then along comes Optimus. He says, you know, it could always be worse. Melancholy comes along and sees man in pit and says, hey, you know, that's no pit. You should see my pit. Jewish mother walks by and says, what, in the pit again? Why couldn't you be a nice young Jewish doctor like your brother? IRS agent comes along and says, hey, did you pay taxes on that pit? County inspector comes along, sees man in pit and said, hey, did you get permit for that pit? Mormon comes along and sees man in pit and says, you know, if you obey the word of wisdom, someday you'll be God yourself and get out of pit yourself. Messianic comes by. Says, I know that I'm supposed to help you out of the pit, but did you know that pit is the name of an ancient Persian god? Charismatic comes along and says, you know, if you only confess that you're not in the pit. Calvinist comes along and says, you must not be saved or else you wouldn't be in the pit. Methodist comes by and says, you're saved, but you're still in the pit. Pharisee comes along and says, you must have committed some sin to be in that pit. Fundamentalist sees man in pit and says, you, my friend, you deserve to be in that pit. But Messiah comes along, reaches down hand to man in pit, and he pulls him up out of the pits. This, my friend, is true brotherly love. Follow him as you follow me. Help somebody, feed somebody, and shelter someone. Be there for those who are in need, my friends. For there is much symbolism in the prophecy of our fathers, but let me tell you something. Your brother does not suffer symbolically. No one is allegorically depressed. Sickness is not a similitude. The moral decay of your great nation cannot be reversed with types and shadows. I beg you, take care of your brethren and keep the unity of the Spirit. I am very, very proud that some of you are determined to stop the rumors and the evil reports concerning me. Go and teach the followers of the Messiah the way, the truth, and the life. Teach them to know the word of the Lord. And stop looking to raise up wise shepherds to lead the sheep, but how about raising up wise sheep? Stop looking for conquerors to lead the sheep, and rather raise up conquering sheep. Press toward the mark for the prize of the high calling of God in Yeshua. Remembering that the task that lies before you is never greater than the master who stands behind you. These times that I have been honored to share this feast with you, I've shared with you some of my life with my Elisheva and the short time I had with my Samuel, and I must say that I miss them so. A man is not a whole man without his beloved helpmate. In spite of the joy that I find in Messiah, I'm very empty on the inside, where my beloved Elisheva should be. I have dedicated my all to Yeshua. I have been so imprisoned so many times I cannot count anymore, and separated from my brethren. I've been beaten, I've been dragged to the streets. I've been lied about and slandered and accused of teaching against the very words that saved me. My life, however, has not been so much what I have accomplished, or even that I have always been faithful. But I am ready to leave this world knowing that I have always been committed to the task. Always. So I charge you, therefore, before the Holy One, the Messiah, who shall judge the living and the dead at his appearing in his kingdom. Preach the word of God. Be diligent in season and out of season. Caution one another and rebuke one another when the time is appropriate. But exhort one another in long suffering and teaching, for the time has come already when many will not endure sound teaching, but they will heap those after their own lusts to themselves, teachers having ears that are always wanting to be scratched. And they will turn away their ears from the Torah, and they would rather hear myths and stories that make them feel good. But watch yourselves in all things. Endure the many afflictions you will encounter. Go and teach the lost sheep and prove to the world that there is but one God who created all things. For I am now ready to be offered. The time of my departure is at hand. I have fought a good fight. Now I have finished the course. Now I have kept the faith. And I have followed the Messiah. And I beg you, brethren, love one another. Especially in these days of great affliction, that your hearts may be comforted. Don't be divided anymore. Love one another. Yivarechecha Adonai Yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai Panav Alecha V'yuchanecha. Yisa Adonai Panav. Elisheva, Samuel, hallelujah. Young man, did you see him hang on the tree? Did you watch him die for you? Let me tell you about the Messiah. Just give me one opportunity to tell you about the Messiah.